Why was the crown of thorns pierced on his head? And it was the first thing he received, right? He first received the crown of thorns before he even went to the cross. There's spiritual significance as to why a person's head was first pierced in that place. There's spiritual significance here. Made sense? So if you look at the crown of thorns, it was placed on Jesus' head. It represents the curse, because Genesis 3:17 and 18 says, cursed is the ground, and thorns and thistles will come about. So thorns and thistles, guys, represents curse, okay? So what Jesus did was he literally took the curse, which is our original sin that came from the ground, and placed it on his head. He took our curse and placed it on his head. Makes sense? Deep, right? Super deep. Jesus literally wore our sin on top of his head, his dome. And why does he place this on his head? It is a metaphor, and it's symbolic that Jesus undid the sins we committed in our thoughts. One more time. It is symbolic and a metaphor that Jesus undid the sins we committed in our thoughts. The anger, the frustration, the lust, the hatred, the murderous thoughts. All of it was undone, right? By Jesus wearing the crown on his thorns. So just like the thorns grew from the earth after the curse, right? Sinful thoughts and desires grow in our minds. That's where it starts. And that's why it had to be pierced first. Because all manner of sin starts from the head. Lustful thoughts affect lustful heart then bleeds into lustful behavior. Do you understand now? Okay, makes sense? So Jesus took the crown of thorns on his head first. There's so many gems here, guys. So many gems. And you guys don't want to join the Bible study for $20 a month? Ay. Amor, como que? Understand? Right? Beautiful, right? I can't afford it. You can't afford $20, man? Oh my goodness. I'm just kidding. So what I'm saying here is, right? If you think about it in this way, right? Right? The first place he was pierced was his head. It's symbolic because God is trying to tell us that sin starts from the mind, which is also connected to the heart. Right? Because the mind is where your brain and your heart intersect. Make sense? Okay? Beautiful, right? Sinful thoughts leads to sinful feelings. Sinful feelings then lead to behavior in that order. God is very deep, right? Jesus wore the crown of thorns to undo the sinful nature of our minds, guys. That's what it is. So when we look at Romans chapter 12, verse 2, right? It tells us not to be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And then it follows up with that you may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of God. It's not telling you guys to renew your mind or do anything and keep the commandments, right? It's telling you that the transformation comes when you believe that Jesus came and died for our sins and made us righteous. He made us holy, and he stays gospel-centered, gospel-focused. Remember, guys, it's not what we can do. It's all about what he can do. Make sense? Without grace, without the sacrifice of Jesus taking the crown of thorns on his head, we could never be reconciled to God. Understand what I'm saying? We can never be reconciled to God. We can only be dragged by Satan, and we can only have a sinful nature. Look at the chat going crazy. I'm truly thankful that God, through Jesus, took the sinful thoughts on his head, and he died on the cross in order to undo all of our sinfulness. So the reason why he was pierced in his feet, let's go on to this, right? There's a reason why Jesus was pierced in his feet or on his feet. Let's think about it. Kind of gave you guys the answer already, right? It's very significant, right? People won't teach you why Jesus was pierced, understand? It's because it's so much deeper than him just dying on the cross for our sins. Jesus' feet was pierced because our feet are quick to shed blood, meaning we commit a lot of sin walking around, in our ways and walking around in our sin. And these ways that we walk leads us away from God, right? So our paths are sinful. Our walk a lot of the times is very sinful. But his feet, Jesus, was pierced because our feet, right, to undo the sin and to undo our sinful walk, guys. Deep, right? We don't have to cut off our feet or cut off our arm anymore. Matthew chapter 5 is suggesting that Jesus walked the perfect path, perfect walk. He also washed our feet, not just with water, but through the blood. And he took the punishment of our crooked steps, sheesh, our sinful nature, undone because of Jesus. He replaced our darkness with his light. So what does Jesus actually mean when he says, if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and throw it away, right? When Jesus was crucified, his face was covered in blood because the crown of thorns, right? So it's safe to say that his blood was washing his own eyes, drenched in his eyes. Would you agree? So his blood washing over his eyes, blinding him potentially, is symbolic of undoing the sins we commit with our eyes. Sheesh. The lust of the eyes, the envy of the eyes, the jealousy, the desire, the hatred that leads to sin. Jesus isn't saying pluck it out because you can't. He's saying just like the blood covering my eyes in order to undo the sin you committed with your eyes, my blood also covered you and undid all the sins you committed. Bars, understand? He was literally blinded for us in order to undo all the sin. He was blinded so we can see. Understand? It's very significant, right? God calls us righteous and we're holy, right? And I hope that you guys can see that. Yes, we do Bible study. Every Saturday is 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Over Zoom, we go from Genesis to Revelations, and we teach a lot of crazy things. Beautiful gems like I did today, why Jesus was pierced in 6 places, right? Crown of thorns, ribs, 2 hands, 2 feet. That's 6, right?